This broadcast contains an audible depiction of violence, suggestive content, and potentially unnerving moments, so viewer discretion is advised. Although this is based on Has Been Hotel, so I'm sure that is already expected. Salutations, sinners! The summer continues to beat on, but, and now being August, it won't be long until the dreadful heat takes its final bow. To some, though, August symbolizes an unfortunate beginning instead of a fortunate end. Yes, I am referring to school starting for some of you listeners towards the middle or end of the month. Now, I do have quite a lot of letters to read through today. I will do my best to read through all of them. However, if I unfortunately do not get to your letter, I promise I will be reading that in my next broadcast. Also, even though I have a pile of letters to read already, you are still welcome to send me letters at 666 YouTube Comment Street. Greetings, old friend. It's been quite a minute, hasn't it? Anyways, I must inform you that during the period you were absent from hell, I have 7 missed birthday gifts that I must return to you now that you're back. Also a hug. I really miss you. I hope you are doing well, because my day today was dreadful, unfortunately. I would love to fix my mood with your usual invigorating charm and lovely taste in jazz. Hopefully soon. That way we can reunite and chat over tea after so long. Can't wait to hear back from you. Sincerely, your friend Gwendolyn. Ah yes, Gwendolyn, I remember you. I hope you were not too upset about the tardiness of this response. I received far more letters than I was expecting, and I unfortunately did not get to reading your letter last month. Still, I would be delighted to join you for drinks and jazz if the offer still stands. I'll even take the gifts off your hands. Skippy Random requested I say, Ace Team, let's kick asses. There you have it. Now on to my next request. Dear Alastor, give me back my waffle fries. Unsatisfiedly yours, L. I don't remember stealing any waffle fries, but if I did, it would be too late because I would have already eaten them. Now for a request from Zing Jenny. Kiss Vox. That is never gonna happen. Moving on. Hey Alastor, you used to be my favorite character and the reason I got into the show back in 2022. You are pretty cool and very enigmatic. However, as the series progressed, it appears you're actually quite the bum-bitty-bitty-bitty-bum-bum. Bum-bitty-bitty-bitty-bum. From Never Gonna Give Ya Up. I appreciate your praise, but I am not a bum, and I do not like how you felt you had to criticize me in such a condescending way. Your only saving graces are that you complimented me in the beginning, and the meter of your criticism was somewhat fun to read. Now, don't you dare ever criticize me like that again. My next letter reads, Good day, Alastor. I was just hoping that you'd be able to spill some tea about Rosie and Vox. Also, you're cooking the jambalaya. Sincerely, Mommy Del Del. While I enjoy cooking my mother's jambalaya on occasion, I do not like being ordered to do so. Anyways, I would love to spill some tea. I do not have much tea about Rosie, however, I can reveal some of her history. She arrived in hell in the 1910s, and I heard that she was one of the main sinners behind the look and culture of Cannibal Town as we know it today. I heard that what is now Cannibal Town was once an unnamed and run-down section of hell that was overrun by some gluttonous cannibals who would eat, or try to eat, nearly everyone they came across. It was a cannibal world until Rosie arrived in hell. She told me that seeing the other cannibals destroying their kindred upset her more than the idea of being sent to hell. So, with the help of the downtrodden cannibals, she ended the others' tyranny and established the mostly civil community Cannibal Town is today. Now, where to start with Vox? When we first met, I could see in Vox's eyes that he wanted to kill me, or at least replace me as the strongest sinner in hell. He introduced himself in a polite and charming way, but his eyes metaphorically glowed green with such an intensity that I half thought his eyes would actually turn that color. Normally, I wouldn't bother with someone like him, but the fact that this fledgling sinner, who was only slightly stronger than the average demon, was essentially challenging me was so amusing that I agreed to meet him again. Under my guidance, he grew in power almost prodigiously. However, he stunted his own growth by trying to settle for a partnership and, well, you know the rest. With my influence, he did successfully get the title of strongest sinner in hell. Although, like the amateur he is, he instantly lost it all, and I bet he now rots in his bed in self-pity. Also, every time he makes a public appearance, Velvet and Valentino have to sedate him so he doesn't act so miserable all the time. My, how far Vox has fallen. As a final bit of tea, I heard that Vox made a somewhat embarrassing aerobics fitness tape back in the 1980s, and clips of it have recently resurfaced. Moving on. Greetings, Alastor. I just wanted to say that you are not in the wrong for rejecting Vox. You are absolutely not obligated to accept his business request at all, and if he can't handle boundaries and rejection, then that's his problem. Also, radio is better. From that one weirdo 777. Of course I wasn't in the wrong, and I can't believe Vox is still hung up over it 70 years later. He seriously needs to learn to leave others alone too. And thank you. Radio is, and always will be, better than any other medium, especially television. Continuing, can you hear out of your dear ears? Do you have a second pair of human ears? How does Vox know you don't have a tail? Also, I'm working for VoxTech now. Trust us with your everything. So I'm required to say this. Fuck you. Thank you and trust VoxTech with your answers. Vox's intern, trust us. Yes, I can hear out of my dear ears, as they are my ears. I do not have any other pair. I am a bit peeved I am a dear sinner, although I am not upset about my heightened senses. Regarding your third question, Vox knows if I do not have a tail because I was the one who showed him if I had one or not. Back when we were on better terms with each other, I admit I would take off my overcoat on occasion, and nothing more than that. I know what some of you sinners are thinking. And he would have seen whether or not I had a tail. I appreciate you writing me a letter despite working at VoxTech, although I must express that you should have instead considered working for a better company, like Rosie's Emporium, Carmine Industries. Honestly, anything but VoxTech. Now, listeners, we have quite a long and thoughtful letter to read. Dear Radio Demon, my letter today is more answers and things you may find on the earth you've since left behind that you may find interesting. And I am decidedly interested in your reactions to them. But I do have a question that I will save until the end. First is a terminology used now to describe certain abnormal behaviors or conditions that were previously attributed to the supernatural or deeply oversimplified, and how those traits are now treated. They are known as disorders or illnesses still. For one thing, people today may attribute to you some sort of antisocial personality disorder, which in its pathology does include a profound lack of empathy or respect for the rights of others or their property. While individuals with this condition find little issue with violence or other amorality, they are not necessarily inclined to be criminal. Research says that adverse childhood experiences and trauma exacerbates the existing condition into more severe forms, wherein the absence of such events shows that they are no more likely to turn to criminal behavior, and at most may just be a bit hard to relate with, since we are so used to an innate empathy. There is hot debate on whether this disorder in any way can be cured, and what the quality of life for individuals with this condition could be, both for themselves but also others around them. Signs usually do appear in childhood, and reputable sources will say that intervention when these signs appear, called oppositional defiance disorder or conduct disorder, personality disorders cannot be diagnosed in children, can yield good results. The medical community also acknowledges people with lowered IQs who are called unfortunate and truly degrading titles can now be understood as having intellectual disabilities due to genetic mutations or conditions, or a developmental disability called autism. I actually fall on the lower end of this autism spectrum, labeled high functioning, since at most I have some socialization or communication issues. But in terms of speech, motor control, and learning milestones, can maintain myself independently as a young adult. Those on the low functioning end can learn to handle themselves, but may need more care and direct intervention to learn these skills. But they can learn. That's the important part. In the past, low-functioning cases were called those awful names, hidden away, often institutionalized, and unacknowledged by their families if they didn't just throw them out. What looked like insanity may have actually been stimming, movements, sounds, and other often repetitive behaviors used to soothe and calm oneself when overstimulated. If an autistic person could pass as mostly normal and had a special interest that society found palatable, they can often be thrown the label of genius or a savant. I could go on, but moving on, is that in my time, women of color going to school and even getting a higher education is fairly unremarkable. Don't get me wrong, implicit racism and sexism, as well as microaggressions, occurring is often a problem in all types of workplaces that still has been labeled men's work. But a woman has legal recourses, and any man who feels slighted by a capable, competent woman has to exercise some restraint. Nor can he just have her committed for female hysteria or some other baloney condition they made up to put outspoken, creative, and capable women in asylums. We are taught of the outward movements led by women. White women, I do grant you, get a disproportionate amount of credit for it until college history class. That led to slowly gaining rights and the legal protection to exercise those rights, as well as more covert ways women protected themselves. No-fault divorces, for one, were to protect the men, and Victorian women were responsible for floriography to covertly express their true feelings or send messages when constrained by high society etiquette. As to my question, I'll keep it short. Was voodoo a prominent part of your life growing up? Was it around the community, and did you ever learn some of the practices and belief system tied to it before adulthood? Or was that an interest developed with your killings as you prepped for the afterlife? Also, did you ever have a way of verifying whether the sources you used for the blood rituals and demon summonings were the real article, or was it trial and error? Sincerely, an aspiring journalist. P.S. Still waiting on a pervert to be tortured on your broadcast. Thank you, journalist. I truly appreciate being informed of some of the societal advancements that have recently been made. Most people assume that just because I am old-fashioned and despise technology, that means I hate everything to do with progress in the present, and consequently they leave me in the dark about what is going on in the world. Now, regarding your updates, with how many women and people of color that have gained positions of power here in the Pride Ring, and with how many new female and non-white sinners carry themselves with confidence, it does not surprise me that progress towards more equality has occurred on Earth. It keeps me smiling to know that the world has been moving towards good in that way. I find the idea of labeling everything to be a spoil to the mystery and fun of some things. To label me as someone with a disorder or illness not only humanizes me and ruins the fun of being seen as a monster, but it also tries to create a neat little box to categorize people into, which is rather boring and difficult. Moreover, I again laugh at the idea of being fixed or redeemed as Even if I do have antisocial personality disorder, and they do find a cure for it, there is absolutely no redeeming me. While your information about autism doesn't necessarily pertain to myself, I find it interesting that this disorder spans across such a wide spectrum, and that those with it have both been degraded and revered by society, depending how it presented itself. Finally, to answer your questions, voodoo is not a prominent religion or practice in my immediate family, nor in the community we were in. Very few people I knew ever got entangled with it out of fear of persecution. However, not too long after my first kill, I discovered that my grandparents had practiced voodoo, and initially out of pure curiosity, I started studying and researching the materials my mother kept in a cardboard box in her closet. Many of my rituals were unfortunately trial and error. There are many false guides to summoning demons, and I cycled through a handful of books and quite a number of sacrifices before I found something that actually worked. Anyways, thank you for your letter, journalist. It was a delight to read, and I hope you will update me on other happenings next time. Now I admit, I spent a significant amount of time reading through all the letters I have currently received, although there is still much more in store for you listeners. I know you have all been waiting for my next Torment section, and I've been equally as hungry to put someone new on my plate. However, the preparations for this next skill unfortunately have taken longer than I anticipated. Still, tonight's the night, and I can assure you that my Torment sections will happen again and again. Now, I'm sure we're all tired of waiting.
Wait, before you go, Alastor, here's all the compiled information on your victim.
You mean Thomas Peping?
Can you reveal that, sir? You might find out.
Even if he does, Bethany, what can he do against the strongest sinner in hell? He can't hide from me, and all the others who try and defend him will just be more sinners to tear apart.
Good point.
Anyways, I must be off. You can keep your little binder. I already know everything I need to know.
Oh, could I come along?
No.
Fine, just make it hurt. I want this bastard to suffer.
Well, listeners, Pepping isn't getting any deader, so it's really time I bring him to his grave. Please be patient for just a moment longer while I prepare his coffin, and then the fun will begin. Anybody home? I can sense him in the house. Very faint signals, but they undeniably belong to some organic creature, and I know my victim doesn't own a pet. Salutations, Thomas Peping. I have seen thousands of graphic scenes over the course of my life and afterlife, yet the sheer depravity of this photo room nearly makes my stomach turn. I nearly regret catching you in here instead of chasing you outside, but this is perhaps too poetic a resting place for you.
I'm a Vox Tech employee, you know. Once Mr. Valentino finds out about this, all the bees are going to come to my protection, and they'll kick your ass again.
Then where are they? Before I came to your house, I broadcasted to the whole pentagram that you, Thomas Peping, are my next torture victim. And given how fast they always arrive at their destinations, why, they should have been here by now.
Well, if not them, then my coworkers.
The very coworkers you take advantage of?
That doesn't count. I work for Mr. Valentino. I'm merely continuing my cinematography outside of my shift. What's so wrong about that?
Working in Valentino's studio doesn't mean that you can continue working outside of it.
Okay, I know what psychotic freaks like you like. And although I'm not gay, I'm willing to, give some if...
Ew. No. Ugh. That's it. This isn't fun anymore. Much better.
What did I even do to deserve this? There are thousands, billions even of sinners that are 100 times worse than me. Go after them, not me.
I couldn't care less about anything you did, although I do know someone who does. And if you want a reminder of your guilt, just look around.
So what if I took a few pervy photos? It's what I do for a living anyways. And hey, am I wrong for deriving pleasure from their innate gifts? I bet they take my lust as a compliment.
You're as wrong as I am for cutting you up.
Hey, I never hurt them.
Maybe not physically, but there are always more ways to hurt someone.
Do you know how much money that camera cost me? I worked my ass off at Mr. Valentino's studio for 30 years to afford that.
And how is that my concern?
You bastard. Oh, I'm gonna make you pay for that. In more ways than one.
Alright, that's enough of this appetizer. It's time to serve what everyone's hungry for.
No.
You are going to burn with the flames of your lust.
No. My photos. My art. My art.
No need to worry, little chickpea. You can still create one last art piece.
What?
Yes, you might finally bring true artistry to life. Through your death, that is.
You my feathers! Oh my god! Oh my god! Help me! Help! Help! Oh my god! Help me! Help! Help me! Stop! 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 Stop, please! Please! Oh, fuck! Oh, fuck you!
Well, it looks like this bird won't be rising from the ashes, but he will be landing on my plate. Perfectly roasted, crispy on the outside and oh so tender on the inside. I guess you could say Thomas Peping was consumed by his desires. No, that doesn't quite work. Well, that is the end of this broadcast. I hope all of you listeners are pleased regardless of if you hated him specifically wanted me to destroy someone like him, or merely wanted to see me work my magic. And since I'm feeling generous, feel free to grab a slice of Tom Peping in his house at 02 Stone Street. I won't be dragging his body back to my room in the hotel, and it would be a shame to waste such meat. Anywho, remember that you're never fully dressed without a smile, and don't you forget to tune on in next time for some more delightful entertainment.